Well, I guess let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us. Today is, she looks at her calendar, Tuesday, July 16th. And my name is Maggie Kulyk. I'm the CEO and founder of Chicory Wealth. And I'm very pleased to be joined by two folks from the Alliance for Youth Organizing, Whitney Celestin. I get that right? And Keisha Barnard or Barnard?
Barnard, perfect.
Barnard, great. So thank you very much for being with us this morning. I want to take an opportunity, and depending on when you might be listening to this, if this is recorded, I'm like all of us, very alert to how quickly things can change. So my comments may be stale by the time you hear them. But I didn't feel comfortable not at least acknowledging the events of the past weekend and the speed with which it has arguably changed our political landscape. And for those of us who are concerned about a return of former President Trump to the White House, I think it has dramatically heightened the anxiety associated with the election. I think it also was on the face of it, a horrible event and a puzzling still event every morning now, again, it's only a few days after, I'm scouring the news to help understand what actually happened and who this person was, etc. I think in the end, it may be more commentary on gun violence than it is anything else, but it will remain to be seen. We don't know yet. I just want to offer that yesterday morning, I held an all hands meeting, we call it, with all of my team, just to say that we recognize as guides to our clients, as leaders of a certain type, that people will look to us, that they will be even more anxious and to be prepared to stand with folks through this next several months and however long that is after that. And I had to acknowledge that sometimes it feels like the arc of history doesn't bend towards justice or love. But if that is the truth, justice and love still keep showing up. And what history will tell us or not tell us remains to be seen. But I'm always impressed by the power of justice and love to continue to come up through the cracks of the sidewalks and along the roads, just like a chicory flower. So I wanted to just remind us all of that this morning and encourage us all to not lose heart. I'm confident I'm preaching to the choir here with you guys on the call. The work you do requires you to keep a high heart and continue to seek to get people out to exercise their rights to vote in this country and to keep democracy alive. I hope I'm not speaking for you in that regard. I suspect you share my feelings. But time will tell how this all turns out. Lots can happen between now and November. And as I said at the outset, things can change on a dime. So we will see what the future holds for all of us. But for me and my team, and speaking to any clients that might be listening or potential clients, we stand ready to support you in any way we can, and be with you as we go through these next few months that will surely be historical. We're certainly living in very vitally historical time. So I'll stop there. And I'm going to give the floor to Whitney and Keisha. And for those of you who are on the call live, please feel free to pop your questions in the chat. You guys are going to do a little PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll have time for more questions. And is it okay if as you go along, if I have questions, I go ahead and jump in and ask them at the time? Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, Absolutely.
Great. All right, take it away.
Great. Liz, do you mind popping the slide deck on the screen? Thank you. So I'm going to kick us off here. My name is Keisha Barnard. I use she, her pronouns. And I have my colleague, Whitney Celestin, on the call here. We're both development directors at the Alliance for Youth Organizing. And before we hop into more of a conversation with Maggie, Whitney and I wanted to share a little bit more about the Alliance and also add some context on the state of youth civic engagement. So I'm going to walk through some data that shows the significance and power when it comes to young people being engaged in shaping our democracy. And then I'm going to hand it off to Whitney to share more about the Alliance's role in making sure young people have the resources and the motivation needed to really flex their power at the ballot box in unprecedented numbers this coming November. So next slide. Great. The Alliance is a federated network of 19 youth-led grassroots organizations, all building power for young people across the country. So each organization is run independently. They have their unique identity and approach to creating change, but we really believe that we unite as a federation to amplify our impact. So we're also looking for ways to continue to expand the youth ecosystem and are starting to work with organizations beyond our immediate network and regions beyond this map. And Whitney's going to share a little bit more about what this looks like later. But next slide. So it's important for us to set the stage in this moment. So in these next few slides, I'm going to be sharing some data from Circle at Tufts University, one of our partners in this work that specifically focuses on youth electoral data. We've all heard that young people are increasingly turning out year after year. If we zoom in a little bit, Gen Z specifically are voting at higher rates than previous generations did when they were in that 18 to 24 age range. So we know that this generation has a lot of potential to shape our democracy in the 2024 cycle. But what are we doing to ensure that these young people are served with the proper messaging, the tactics, and the education to ensure that they know where and how to vote, and also ensure that they have the motivation to turn out? Next slide. Great. So the voter roll for young people is continuously growing. So since the 2022 elections, there have been over 8.3 million young people who have turned 18 and who are now eligible to vote. And when you dig into this number a little bit more, you'll find that 45% of newly eligible voters are young people of color. So this shows us that who young people are is a changing group. These demographics look a lot different than when previous generations were in that 18 to 24 age range. So again, how are we adapting our work to ensure young people are continuously engaged? Next slide. So before I hand it off to Whitney to talk about the Alliance for Youth Organizing and who we are in this work, I'm going to share these next two slides here that show the top 10 states where young people are poised to have the biggest impact. So this first slide here shows where the potential for youth impact in the presidential states. So of these states listed, we have affiliates in 9 out of these 10 states. The only state that we don't have an affiliate in is Pennsylvania, and we still do run programming in that state with mail programming. So next slide. This shows the potential youth impact in the Senate elections, where we have affiliates in 7 out of these 10 states. So again, we're really working to ensure that our affiliates across these states are running effective campaigns and reaching as many young people as possible, and that they're well resourced and trained enough to do that. So I'm going to hand it off to Whitney to share more about our programmatic work to make all of this happen.
Can I ask you a quick question, if you don't mind, before you start? Are these states, and the way you have them, number 1, 2, 3, etc., is that a ranking of your assessment of the impact, or is that just a random ranking? Like, why is it? It's like Arizona, is that the number 1 state where youth could impact the Senate election? Is that what you're saying with that?
Yep, exactly that. And there's like a little hyperlink down at the bottom right. There's so much more data when it comes to just like the youth significance in our elections, but this is ranked by numbers. So youth are poised to have the biggest impact in Arizona. Following that is Ohio and Montana.
And when you say youth in terms of age range, what does that mean to you when you use that term?
That's a good question. So the way that the Alliance uses it is different from maybe how some of our affiliates use it. Sometimes when we say young people, we say ages 18 to 35. But in this specific instance, we are really talking about that 18 to 24 age range.
Okay. And last question before you go on the data point, 45% of new voters are people of color, right? Is that a function of there simply being more people of color, period? Or is that a function of more people of color becoming new voters? Do you see what I'm asking? Like, is it a function of just numerics? They're just more people of color. And so there are more youth people of color who are voting.
Yeah, so I think it's the first one. There are more folks of color
Okay.
because that number doesn't necessarily, and I'm gonna have to look into this a little bit more, but I don't think it means all of these folks are eligible to vote based off whatever crazy regulations there are in
Yeah.
this state.
Yeah.
So it is just out of all eligible voters, 45% are people of color.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Okay. Carry on, please.
I think we're good to go to the next slide. Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Whitney, she, her pronouns. So I'm going to share a little bit more about the Alliance and the actual base of what we do when it comes to our organization and the makeup of it. So the Alliance for Youth Organizing provides year-round support to local youth organizations and building youth power to shape our democracy and future to pave the way for a journey toward liberation. So the Alliance has 19 affiliates across 18 states. We have 2 affiliates in Florida, which is why that number is off a little bit. But beyond our affiliates, we also have partners in the other states where we aren't located in. So one of the interesting things about the Alliance is that we work with youth organizing partners across the country to further our reach and expand to be able to do our work across the country and to be able to engage those young people and to make sure that although we don't have an affiliate in that specific state, there is a civic home for young people and we can continue to support them and let them know their voice matters and things that they're passionate about when it comes to advocacy, democracy reform, and those things are important to us as well, and we will continue to support them. So our strategy is 3-pronged. We work to build and enhance organizational power through our capacity building offerings, so that rather than turning to outside resources that don't understand the needs of youth-led organizations, our network and our partners can rely on us to provide them with the tools, resources, and skills needed to mobilize youth effectively and run sustainable organizations. We plug into supporting them by confronting the system barriers that may hinder organizational success. Our offerings include organizational health assessments, site visits to determine gaps and areas of improvement, financial management, and compliance support. We're also running layered nonpartisan programs in the top 10 electorally relevant states where young people have the most impact to ensure young people on and off college campuses are reached by mail, digital canvassing, and voter guide programs. So when it comes to our voter engagement, we are focused on our top 10 states that Keisha shared earlier, but also we do voter engagement year round with all of our affiliates and our partners. Actually, earlier this year, Keisha got to join our Ohio affiliate in the winter and was out there engaging young voters. And I was able to join the Georgia affiliate in Atlanta right before Memorial Day weekend. And we were talking to voters about the primaries that were happening. So it was a good time to be able to go out there and directly engage with the voters in the communities and be able to see our affiliates at work and to just know the work that we're doing continues, rain or shine or snow, and that we are constantly on the ground working to support our community and get them engaged and educated. So lastly, as part of our strategic plan implementation a few years ago, we are leaning into our identity as a funding intermediary and connecting our network to national resources so they have the tools and resources needed to run effective programming. Over half of our budget goes directly to moving resources to youth civic engagement organizations across the country. Those include our affiliates and also those partners that we have that are not affiliates nationwide. We, excuse me, We launched this campaign ahead of this historic election to ensure our affiliates are well resourced, but we also invest in researching the gaps beyond our immediate network and are now funding local organizing initiatives beyond our affiliates to ensure we have as many touch points with young people as possible.
Mhm.
Next slide, please. Our plan to win is first to leverage the power of insight of our network to inform our strategies. So again, we are a federated network and trust our organizations to make the best decisions for their communities. We also need to meet young people where they're at. So some of this definitely happens in person, and a lot of our initiatives happen on college campuses. But we're also intentional about reaching young voters beyond campuses and are showing up to community events to engage young people in organic ways. We are also wanting to touch on the social media point. Gen Z and millennials consume news more passively and spend more time online than any other age groups. So it's imperative to reach them on multiple platforms throughout the day. We are investing in amplifying our reach and engagement via social media and are crafting content that feels authentic to young people to enhance engagement. This also brings me to my next point of leveraging issues that impact young people. Serving young people with messages that they really care about, such as the economy, healthcare, and other issues that directly impact them, will move them to make their voices heard at the polls. So, by engaging in these tactics, we can motivate young people to turn out in unprecedented numbers. Next slide, please. So this is just showing our numbers this year. So our affiliates, those 19 affiliates across the country that I shared about, each year share with us how many numbers that they know they can do when it comes to reaching different voters in their communities. So this year we are looking at collectively 120,000 plus voter registrations, 190,000 plus voter guides being distributed, 260,000 plus pledge cards being signed, and 3+ million contact attempts. And these contact attempts include door knocking, phone calls, text messaging as well. So these are some of the big numbers that our network is looking at, and we are continuing to support them with capacity building offerings each day. And of course, also us showing up through our programming as well to support them in reaching their numbers. So that is all that we have for you. If you have any questions about what we specifically shared, you are always welcome to email us directly. Our first name, Whitney or Keisha, at allianceforyouth.action.org.
Great. Okay, well, I have questions. And if anyone else here on the call live has questions, please do pop them in the chat. And Liz, if you would help me keep track of those, that would be great. And if you need to come on camera to let me know somebody's asked a question, please do, because I'm not sure. Can I see the chat? Maybe I can see the chat. Let me see. Not super easily. So let me, oh, okay, maybe I can. I got it up. So questions. And feel free to, you can feel free to distinguish between, let's see how to phrase this. I don't expect you to speak for all youth in America, okay? Like, I understand you're two people and you represent an organization. But I'm curious, just person to person, really, in this moment. And someone, how old are you guys, by the way, just out of curiosity? Where do you guys fall in these demographics? I'm 62. Let me go first. I'm 62. So I'm just right. I like to think I'm really not a baby boomer. I technically am, but I'm like right at the very end of it. But anyhow, I interrupted. Go ahead, Whitney.
I'm 32.
Okay, so you're old. All right. Yes. Kidding.
I'm 30.
Okay, 30 and 32. Okay.
Yeah,
so
we've aged out. We've aged out
You've
of the
aged,
young people
technically
category.
aged out, right? But, you know, I understand you, this is your work and this is important. So what are you hearing? And maybe specifically in the 18 to 24 range, or however you want to, or for yourselves, what are the issues you are most passionate about? What do you think is motivating to folks your age to use their power at the ballot box?
There are a couple issues that we're seeing across our network. So we did speak with our affiliates, our ED leaders, and we learned some of the trends that are really impacting young people. And so those are shaping some of the work that we do now. And those include housing or economic issues, advocacy issues, democracy reform when it comes to public safety, also reproductive justice, abortion access, and the last one being environmental justice and climate change.
We've also recently invested in some polling, and this is more generally like young people outside of our affiliates. But when we look at like the top 10 issues that young people care about, the top three have to do with the economy. So whether that be inflation, the price of just living, like prices that they're seeing at the grocery store. So that's starting to inform our work more and more, knowing that, you know, young people are so concerned about inflation in the economy.
Okay, interesting. Okay. And when you use the term democracy reform, can you say more about what that means? What does that language mean?
It's a very broad term, and more so it's about a democracy that works for us, right? We want our leaders that we elected are in place to be able to represent us on the issues that really impact us and matter to us in our communities. So, as Keisha was saying, those issues when it comes to the economic stability and young people being concerned that they won't be able to afford to buy a house, or they're concerned they will never be able to pay off student debt in this lifetime at least. So, making sure that those who are in office are hearing us and understanding us and being able to implement change when the laws that impact us and can support us and being able to have feasible livelihoods.
Okay, got it.
To add on that, the reason
Please.
why we were actually in Ohio when the group of us did go to Ohio earlier this year,
In the winter, I know.
in the
because
winter,
I'm
yes.
from Western Pennsylvania, so I just want to say you definitely got the short end of the stick on that compared to Memorial Day in Atlanta, just saying, but
I
go
know.
ahead.
We get first pick next time on which affiliate we choose to visit, but we actually were supporting them with a gerrymandering ballot measure or amendment, I guess. So things like gerrymandering, you know, we're making sure that not just young people, but everyone are truly represented by a fair government. So things like
Right.
that too.
Right, got it. Okay. I want to get the chat question in here. Just to, it looks like it appears like the Georgia affiliate in Georgia is Georgia Shift based in Augusta. Do they focus mainly on Augusta and Richmond County, or are they statewide, or do you know about that
So
particular group?
our Georgia affiliate is actually Georgia Youth Justice Coalition, and
Okay.
they're based more so in Atlanta, which is why I was in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And so they focus more predominantly on that area because that's where they're located, and they're a smaller group. But we do work with other groups in Georgia to try to have a further reach. Georgia Shift is not one of our groups, just thinking off the top of my head.
Okay,
But our groups do work across the state.
got it. Got it. I'm sure you have a lot of representation in the city of Atlanta, right? Yeah. Does another question from Beth? Thank you. Does democracy reform include concerns about the electoral college and voter suppression? Is that an issue area that you guys are? Let's start just with the electoral college. Do you have a position on that? Like, oh, we shouldn't have one. It should be a popular vote, or do you not have a position on that? Is that considered a political position? I'm
That
just
is more, yeah, it's a more of a political position. So as the Alliance, we do not specifically have a stand on the Electoral College. And we let each organization have a voice on their own, but that's not something specifically that we are going to voice our concerns about. But as individuals, we all do have our opinions.
yes. Well, yes. Don't we? I certainly do. Yes, got it. Okay. Let's see. So a couple of questions about the last slide was sort of, you said how we win. And so what is considered a win in your context? Is it, I mean, again, you don't have to make a statement about necessarily what party wins, but I guess, are there particular targets of people you want to get out to vote, or how do you understand, what does win look like in this context, I guess is what I'm asking.
Ideally, everyone who is able to will vote. I mean, that's a huge one for us. But specifically, historic youth voter turnouts are also big ones for us. We do want young people to come out in large numbers to their polling locations to be able to show that we are a huge demographic, we are a large group, and we are a force to be reckoned with. And so for us young people going out and flexing their political muscle, whether you stand for Democrats, Republicans, Independents, it doesn't matter who it is, just being able to go out there and vote is what we really care about.
Right, right. And how are you feeling? I mean, when you take the temperature of the people you work with, the people you affiliate with, your friends, etc. I mean, give us a sense of what your, and you can, even if you want to just speak for yourself and say, you know, I'm not talking about this organization, I'm just talking about me. I'd be very curious. I don't get a chance to talk to folks who are on the ground so much. And so, and we have had a few other organizer folks come on because this is part of our 1% for social justice initiative, but they were my generation. They're not your generation. So I'd be curious to hear, you know, what you're thinking and feeling right now.
In general terms of just the election or democracy.
Yeah, and how confident are you that folks are going to turn out, that they're engaged and they're ignited to turn out?
Based on trends that we've seen with the last election and also some primaries that we saw with youth voter turnout, it is showing that young people are definitely becoming more tapped in and more passionate about the issues that are affecting them, and they are becoming more educated, and having that civic home year round really is helpful to them continuing to stay engaged and knowing when to show up to elections, where to show up to elections, and to be able to get past those voter suppression laws that are trying to keep them from being able to vote. So for me, seeing those numbers and seeing those trends helps me remain confident young people they will continue to show out and show up in large numbers and be able to support these different issues that matter to them.
Thank you.
I think taking it, yeah, to a more personal level, there is both personal and what we've been seeing in like recent polls is not the most encouraging, just personally. And it can be really scary, but I think it's so important to invest now and show young people that, you know, we care now and even after it doesn't stop at the election, right? Like we
Right.
will care after the election as well. Um, Young people are definitely issue-based voters. So again, back to the point about like making sure that we're tapping into the messaging on issues that young people care about is so important to get them to turn out to the polls. Um, there was one more point I just had. Oh, also, centering young people as the hero of the story is so, so important. I like to say young people have a really sensitive bullshit meter. They can smell like bullshit, fakeness, whatever from a mile away. So it's really important to remind young people that because they turned out in prior elections, you know, X, Y, and Z happened. We were able to erase student debt. We were able to cap insulin at $35. And reminding young people that because they went out and voted, we had these wins.
Things
Not
happen.
because, yeah, exactly, things happened. Not because they voted for a specific person that these things happened, but because they empowered themselves and their communities to actually flex their power, these things happened.
Right. So echoing a message in a sense that we got from prior speaker, Latasha Brown from Black Voters Matter, which is the election is about power and about policy, not about personality. In essence, is what she said. She put it much more beautifully than I just did, but essentially that's what she was saying. And do you, I guess, I believe that. Sounds like you believe that. Do you think the folks you're talking to can connect to that? I mean, I guess, and do you think that, how are you feeling about folks not just coming out for the general election in November, but really engaged in understanding what to do or to how to activate those levers of power for the down ballot stuff? I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering, is the message do you feel like the message is getting through? And I know you just said some of the polling makes you feel a little right now, but one never knows. There's still,
Yeah.
right?
I think,
Let me just, pardon me.
sure.
For those of you just joining, we are recording, so please, you might want to stop your camera lest in perpetuity you are on our website, which is okay with us, but might not be okay with you. So just just put your video off, if at all possible. That Betsy and Howard, just to call you out, not to just, you might want to drop your video. Sorry, Keisha, go ahead.
All good.
Keisha, go ahead.
All good. I'm so sorry. Remind me of the question again.
Yeah, I was rambling.
Oh,
I get,
yes.
you got,
I
okay,
just reminded myself. I
got
think
it.
that's our job, right? Like at the end of the day, that's why we exist. We need to be so intentional about reaching young people. That's why we're engaging them on social media, right? We're what Whitney said earlier, we're meeting them where they're at, and that's what we're here to do. And that's why we're investing in local organizations who know their communities the best
Yes.
to have that engagement. And I think that's what really sets us. I actually just answered this question a few days ago. Someone asked, what sets us apart from other youth civic organizations or youth or donor intermediaries that are specifically targeting young people. And I think we don't just show up and ask people to vote, right? We're base building. We're investing in organizations that are creating communities that host events that might not necessarily, like, the immediate purpose is not civic engagement, but civic
Right.
engagement is embedded. So we're hosting workshops on housing. We're hosting community gatherings around specific cultural celebrations. So that's what really sets us apart from other organizations, is that yes, we want folks to vote and be civically engaged, but we're going to be there long before the elections. We're going to be there long after the elections. And our primary purpose may not just be civic engagement, but we're building community to be civically engaged.
Right. And thank you, because you just answered precisely why we wanted to support your organization and why it fits within the criteria that we at Chicory Wealth set up for ourselves, which was, how do we fund frontline grassroots organizations who are really trying to build power, particularly those organizations led by the people closest to the pain, namely BIPOC communities. So it sounds like we nailed it with you guys. Is to say, that the work you're doing is about building long-term relationships with communities to empower those communities to embrace their own political power. And you are smart enough to give those local activists the money and stay out of their way and just support them in building what they're doing. Is that a fair characterization? If I got that right? So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I like to also share, sorry, I know I'm
No,
talking a
please.
little bit here. All of our organizations are led by local community members. They're often young folks. They're often folks of color. And Whitney mentioned this earlier, but they're often intentionally and systemically pushed out from, just like the system of running an organization is really complicated and tough to
Yes.
figure out. And that's where we come in. We're filling those gaps. We're not only providing them with like monetary resources, which is of course super crucial, but we're also providing them with those capacity building services that Whitney listed off, and ensuring that they know how to run a healthy and sustainable organization. They know the compliance rules. They know how to manage an organization financially. So those are yes, we trust our local EDs to know what's best for their community, but we're also filling in the gaps in ways they have been systemically
Exactly.
removed before.
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated. These things are complicated. And to your point, there's a lot to navigate to build an organization sustainably and long term. You don't just start up one day and it just doesn't work. I mean, I'm very admiring of what seems to me to be a shift in the last decade or so of the recognition that you can't build civic engagement by just showing up for 4 months before an election cycle and expect anything to stick, right? So I think that's great. Question: do these local groups that you support come to you, or do you go out to find them, or both? Or how does it work? How do you connect to these organizations that you're
It's a
supporting?
mix. But the Alliance has been around for a period of time. So we are very fortunate to be very tapped into our local communities at this point, and have been in long-standing conversation with a bunch of groups of partners, affiliates. And so at this point, we are very tight network, and we are able to reach out to those organizations that are longstanding and being aware of those organizations, and if need be, being able to reach out to them and then being able to reach out to us. One of the important aspects of our strategic plan implementation is expansion. So we are continuing to expand. It's important to us to go further, and it's important for us to go further together. So definitely being able to have groups come to us and us to be able to go to them as well.
Got it. Got it. This is a little inside baseball so bear with me, but when I was a student in college, I went to a state-owned college, Westchester University. It was one of the 13 sister colleges in Pennsylvania. And I was part of an organization called the Commonwealth Association of Students, which was an overarching group that helped student organizers on campus. Very rough time to be a progressive organization on campuses. It was the beginning of the Reagan cycle. So this is 1980, 81. And I was also part of the United States Student Association, which I think is still in existence. So I guess where am I going with this? I think this situation has changed very significantly in a really good way. That is to say, it feels to me like there is a lot more resource and commitment and engagement at the grassroots level for youth than there was. I can't even do the math. How long ago? 40 years ago. So long ago, I can't even do the math on it. And so it gives me a great deal of hope, actually, that there's a future here, particularly for those of us who are inclined to support a progressive agenda. So I think it's great work. Now, I am curious, though, this is just this is a curiosity about both of you individually, if you don't mind me asking. You are 30 and 32. You are obviously organizers. Is there a logical next step for you guys at some point where you move on? At some point, frankly, is there a point at which this organization, at what point are you too old to run, I guess is what I'm at. What point, seeing as how we have a lot of conversation about age these days, I'm just curious, like, how does it work? And where do you see individually? You're obviously doing this work. I suspect you've been committed to this work for a long time. Where do you see yourselves in a decade?
It's a hard question. I feel like now where I am, it's important to me at the Alliance to be able to contribute to the culture of the Alliance so this organization can continue to grow and support young people, and young people can come to the organization and grow as I have been able to in the past 3 years that I've been here. And so it's important to me that in a decade, I will be able to look back and continue to do this work and supporting young people where they are. So not just having this be this is me right now moment, but later on down the years, being able to take what I've learned from this organization and being able to then turn around and give back to the organization that supported me during this time as well. So that's important to me.
Got it.
So Whitney and I attended a network convening last week in Milwaukee where we had a representative from each of our affiliates. We come together. It's information sharing, idea sharing. It's just like a beautiful 2 days together. And one of our affiliates, the one from Nevada, one APIA Nevada, they shared how important it is that, yes, we are for young people, but this is multi-generational. And they shared a specific story about how someone had reached out to them on Facebook, and it was like, I think a grandma of someone, and she was like, thank you so much for all of your work. I got my grandson or grandchild to like do a door knocking event or like come to one of your volunteer events. And it just shows that this work is truly multi-generational. For me personally, I started off my career as a 7th grade math teacher. I am always going to be dedicated to young people, even as I age out of this young person category. And at the Alliance, we do have folks of all ages, and it goes to show like like what I was talking about earlier, a lot of the skills that you learn really does just come with age, right? Like whether that be compliance or like financial management, like that as a young person, I'm not qualified to speak on those things, rather, you know, as compared to someone who has been in this industry longer than I have. So we really believe in that multi-generational fight. And I'm not exactly sure what's next for me, but I know I will 100% always be dedicated to young people.
Right, right. I love that multi-generational piece, and I really believe in that philanthropically, that engagement and organizations that really embrace, you know, multiracial, multi-generational communities are just super powerful. I belong to an organization like that that has been working on that for a long, long time. And so I appreciate the strength of the fabric that creates for communities when you have that cross-pollination of generations and also identities and experiences and all of those things. It really makes for a very, you know, it makes for a powerful movement and just a powerful personal experience. So I think that's great, and I love the grandma thing. I can imagine myself doing that. That's awesome. Let's see, what other questions do I have for you today?
Maggie, there might be
Oh.
a follow-up in the chat from Pam about the Georgia affiliate.
Oh, got it. Okay. In Georgia, does your affiliate partner, do you affiliate with the New Georgia Project or Fair Districts Georgia? So maybe those are not necessarily youth groups. I'm not sure, Pam, but other groups that are doing voter engagement. Either of those ring a bell to y'all?
Not sure who our Georgia affiliate partners with on the local level. If there's a recommendation for them to be able to partner with them on the local level, we can definitely extend that and share that along.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And lastly, just as a reminder to you guys, but also to those of you listening, this conversation is part of our a first-year initiative for Chicory Wealth called 1% for Social Justice. I mentioned that briefly. This is about we as an organization have committed 1% of our top line revenues to funding this year 3 groups that are focused on voter engagement, but that use a methodology that is very much about supporting grassroots organizations with a special emphasis on BIPOC-led organizations. So our 3 organizations have been Black Voters Matter, which is a national organization, but is based in Atlanta. The Coalition for the People's Agenda, which is a local organization in Georgia that's been around a long time. It's sort of a coalition of civic engagement. And you guys, Atlanta Youth or Alliance for Youth Organizing, which is also a national organization. So I just want to remind you, and I'm going to come back, we've got more in the chat, but this is just a segue of a commercial, that we will be having an event on September 28th in Atlanta for those who might be listening who are local to Atlanta. And we always have an annual client event, so this is part of that. But we are inviting all 3 organizations, if they choose and have the time, to be present at that event. And to have some sort of table or something so that if anyone wants to give additionally, that we make that available to them. And to emphasize the very point you made, this kind of work is 365, almost 24/7 work. This isn't just about an election cycle. This isn't just about a national election this year, although we are in a very critical moment, as we all know. But this is the kind of thing we need to be supporting across the board if we want our democracy to be fully representative and, you know, or even slightly more representative. I mean, if we can move the meter even just a little bit, we got to keep working on it all the time. And money matters for those of you who are thinking philanthropically. I'm a big advocate that dollars should go to social movements. That's my thing. Other people have their thing, but this is if you support that philosophy, yours is a great organization to support. So question, as an intermediary funder, which it's true you are both a funder, but it sounds like you're also a hands-on collaborator of information as well, right? how do you make decisions, i.e. which affiliates get funds? What's your methodology there, to the extent that you can speak to that? I don't know if either of you are involved in that level, but maybe you are.
So when we adopted our new strategic plan, we went through this strategic plan implementation task force where we broke up in different groups. And one of those things, a part of the strategic plan, is our funding values. And when it comes to network organizations, affiliates, or partners, what are the specific values that are important to us as a young organization? And what are the things that we are focused on funding that we would like our affiliates and partners to also focus on as well? So we have different criteria that we have them meet. And so it depends on, are you a youth-led organization? Is your focus young BIPOC individuals in the community? The specific advocacy issue areas I shared about earlier. There are other aspects of it, like our mail program or our Senate work that we're trying to support. It just really varies depending on the year. This, of course, we're in election year, so our focus is going to be really heavily tied into those points that Keisha mentioned earlier. But generally, our general focus will be the work that we do all day, every day, year round to support our groups.
Keisha, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the other thing that I can think of, so for example, this is C3 eligible, so because abortion is on the ballot and across 5 different states, or 5 different states that we work in, of course, we're going to try to funnel as many funds in those states as possible to make sure young people are getting out to vote to, safeguard those rights. So also we do have our funding criteria, but then it is also what is happening. So we're constantly adjusting our tactics to make sure that we're staying relevant and we're supporting the causes that are most important to young people right now.
Got it. Okay, I think I have like a lot. I think I could talk to you guys for another 2 hours, but we don't have another 2 hours to talk. But I want to say that I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. I know that you are, as someone who has some contact with folks who are doing this kind of work, I know you are probably extremely oversubscribed, very busy all the time, and probably a little fried. So I just want to acknowledge that your willingness to come on and talk at all to us is greatly appreciated. And I just appreciate the opportunity to amplify the work you're doing. But I also don't want to take away from the work and take away from your time. So I do hope one or both or someone from your organization will be able to come to our Atlanta event. We would be delighted to host you. And I just want to emphasize to everyone listening that strength of democracy is the ballot box is the thing. And I'm refraining from a lot of political commentary about the degrees to which everyone who's got a pulse knows that there's a demographic here that votes in a particular direction, and that part of a strategy to keep that demographic from being their voice being heard is all things that are possible to limit that turnout. The turnout is critical, that you have to vote to move your power, and that voting still works. They just got to continue to overcome whatever obstacles get thrown in front of us. And you guys are right on the front lines of trying to do that. So we honor that here, and just want to say how much we appreciate your time and your work, and wish you both a very bright future wherever your work takes you. So with that, if there are no other questions from our chat, I will say adieu. Thank you all very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.